Antisocial personality disorder includes both sociopaths and psychopaths. They have some things in common, but there are very distinct things. I'm Dr. Ali Mattu, clinical psychologist, and today we're going to be looking at mental illness in movies.
In New York, does it remind you?
That's manipulative. I don't want to talk about it.
Are they coming back? The aliens?
Maybe. Can you stop?
So that's kind of a pretty good example of trauma right there.
Does this subject make you edgy?
Yeah, a little bit. Can I just catch my breath for a second?
Now he's starting to feel some panic. He's been triggered.
To breathe into? Do you have...
This is a really good example of how everyday situations can trigger someone and the other person might not even know that they're triggering someone's trauma.
Do you want me to
Remember when I said to stop doing that? I swear to you, you're gonna freak me out.
I really love Marvel movies, and Iron Man 3 is one of my favorites because it's such a good representation of anxiety. Here we see Tony experiencing panic. Hyperventilation is a pretty core symptom of panic. We see Tony Stark avoiding a lot of situations that are difficult for him, and that's a big hallmark of anxiety. It's a good example of trauma because trauma happens when fundamental belief you have has been challenged in some way. He's always been able to engineer his way out of danger, and this is the first time he couldn't. In the movie, his anxiety just sort of seems to resolve itself, and we don't really see how it's resolved itself, but I like what they show us in terms of the examples of anxiety and trauma there. Okay, I haven't seen Split yet, but I really want to see it.
With regard to Jahamana's defeat and Muhammad of Ghor's conquest between 1192 and 1200, I would liken it to Muhammad's brazen ultimatum that...
So this looks like another dissociative identity disorder. It's kind of interesting idea is like vlogging as your different personalities to yourself.
Choke. I hate my insulin shots. No one else around here has to take them. What do I have to do? Diabetes.
So accurate representation, different tone of voice, different presentation, different way of talking, different way of sitting.
Huh? How do you explain I'm the only one that needs these, you motherfucker?
Okay, I have no idea what's about to happen, but it's kind of interesting. What's unusual about this example is his different personalities seem to be talking to each other. Some personalities can interact with each other, but to this level of communication and coordination, probably not. And dissociative identity disorder is also very controversial. Some people think it's a representation of schizophrenia, and that is a big myth. The confusion comes from the word schizophrenia. Schizophrenia means split mind, and that refers to the split between what's really happening and what someone's experiencing in their mind with hallucinations. He has kidnapped these other women. It's an M. Night Shyamalan film. In this kind of stuff, you suspend your disbelief a little bit more, but this is where a lot of people get ideas about mental illness. I don't think a lot of people take it too seriously, but it is perpetuating some myths. Okay, I haven't seen Beautiful Mind in many years, but I remember really liking it. Oh my gosh. This is like really sad to watch now.
Charles was watching, he was okay.
So he's experiencing a visual hallucination. He's seeing something that isn't really there. And it's much more common to have auditory hallucinations, to hear things, but some people do experience visual hallucinations. A big part of schizophrenia is confusion and fear and not quite understanding what's happening, and I think we're seeing a good example of that.
Charles was watching.
So one of the things about schizophrenia is learning how to identify your symptoms and learning what is an hallucination and what's actually real. John Nash in this scene realizes that one of his hallucinations never ages. That could be an effective form of coping for him. I've heard other people say, if my dog is not reacting to something, then I know that's my illness. That's a pretty realistic way to cope with it. One of my only issues with A Beautiful Mind is at the end there is sort of this message that you can sort of outthink schizophrenia, and that isn't it's not the most realistic. What's really great about A Beautiful Mind is it shows someone who has schizophrenia who is not violent, and that's a big stereotype about schizophrenia. Most people who have mental illness are not violent. They're much more likely to be the victims of violence than they are someone who might be violent themselves.
Sally Dibbs, Sally. 461-0192.
A lot of people who have autism do see visual patterns to a much higher degree than people who don't have autism.
461-0192.
But they also really struggle with social interaction.
You memorize the whole book?
No.
You start from the beginning?
Yeah.
How far did you get?
G.
I think Tom Cruise's character is a good representation of how hard it can be for people who don't have autism to understand it.
Maple syrup is supposed to be on the table before the pancakes.
We haven't ordered yet, Ray.
Of course, when they bring the maple syrup after the pancakes.
So needing things to be a certain way and then getting really emotionally overwhelmed when they're not like that, that happens a lot with autism.
I know toothpicks, I'm definitely not gonna.
I like that representation. It does a good job of showing the differences in how someone who has autism versus someone who doesn't have autism, how they see the world, and also the challenges of working together and understanding each other. The only thing I don't like about this representation, it does show more of a narrow view of the functioning of someone who has autism. Now we know it's a spectrum, and people are all over on that spectrum. But that's more just representative of when this movie was made. Other than that, I think it shows those main features of autism, the focus on visual patterns, on logic, a little bit of rigidity, and difficulty with social interactions. It shows those really well. I haven't seen this in a long time, but I remember liking its representation. It's the middle of the night, so he's clearly having a hard time falling asleep, which sleep problems are a big part of bipolar disorder.
It's after 3 o'clock. What are you doing?
I looked in here, but this is all your shit up here.
And he's focused on something, trying to solve a problem. We call that goal-directed activity, which is much more common when people might be experiencing manic symptoms. This is also a great example of how bipolar can impact families.
Are you going to my study? Feels to me like you want to hide.
He's a bit more irritable, more frustrated, more upset. That can also really happen when someone is more manic. Bipolar is all about moving fast or moving slow. We're definitely seeing that fast part right here. This is a really quick escalation of stuff, but this kind of sequence of events can happen with bipolar disorder when someone is manic. It wouldn't happen this quickly, but you know, it's a movie.
Let the whole neighborhood wake up. I don't.
That was pretty good. Very quick escalation. It wouldn't happen that quickly, but it does a good job of showing us the experience of being manic. We also see a lot of that emotional sensitivity, intensity of the emotions. One of the biggest triggers for bipolar disorder, if you're not sleeping as much as you used to, or if you have trouble falling asleep, it can have a huge impact on your mood. I love Sherlock.
I think from now on we'll downgrade you to casual acquaintance, no more than 3 planned social encounters a year, and always in John's presence. I have your contact details. I will be monitoring.
They're right about you. You're a bloody psychopath.
High-functioning sociopath. With your number.
That is such a good line. I love that, because that speaks to this difference between sociopaths and psychopaths. There is a difference in how we use those terms. Both categories, they might break rules or break the law. The difference with a sociopath is they can form connections with other people. Sherlock definitely has a relationship with Watson. He definitely cares about him, so he does have relationships. He doesn't just simply manipulate people. The thing that's a little bit less realistic is people who are sociopaths, they tend to be more reactive, more impulsive, more emotional than psychopaths who are more cold-blooded, more tempered, more calculating. This Sherlock, I think he's a bit more on the autism spectrum. He sees patterns, doesn't interact with people the same way that other people do. He's not impulsive like we would think of many sociopaths. I remember being so blown away by this movie.
But I made him smarter. sharper.
So we're seeing a lot of examples of how she's manipulated other people. There's a callousness, a lack of emotion there.
We were happy pretending to be other people. We were the happiest couple we knew.
That lack of emotion, lack of empathy, ability to manipulate other people to get what you want. This is very characteristic of antisocial personality disorder, especially breaking the law, murdering people.
Younger, bouncier, cool girl.
This is really intense.
You think I'd let him destroy me and end up happier than ever?
So that was really, just hearing her, I felt like goosebumps. It just felt so cold, so calculated. I would be very nervous around someone like that. It's a pretty good example of antisocial personality disorder. That's the technical, clinical term that we use. It's not the term most people use. The terms that come up are sociopath and psychopath. This is actually an example of someone who is a psychopath. Being very cold-blooded, being able to manipulate other individuals, not forming strong attachments unless it's to get what you want. That type of manipulation, that's much more associated with what people call psychopath. They can work on Wall Street and be really good scientists. Detachment from other people actually helps them to do their job. They don't have to be killers. Most of the stories that we see are about murderers, and that's not realistic. What's so cool about movies is they can make it easier for us to have conversations about mental illness. Mental illness is just one part of who we are, it's one part of our identity, but it's not the whole story. And now I need to go get a hug because I feel very scared. That was a scary movie to end on.